Okay, we're live. Well, hopefully, after last week's challenges where we thought we were live, but we weren't for a bit. We're live for this week's Data Value Show. So today it's going to be the BI to AI, the past to the present. And I may give away who my guest is. I have Ryan Dooley, a super data bro. How you doing, buddy?
Chris, good to see you, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. Busy but good. I mean, there's a lot going on these mean data streets as well as at work at the moment. But I couldn't have thought of anyone better to nerd out about this subject. We were just pre-nerding out just in the green room before the show. In fact, we nearly missed starting again, which is a common theme. But for those that don't know you, Ryan, would you like to give yourself an introduction and a bit about what you're up to?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm Ryan Dooley. I'm one of the super data brothers. So I with my brother Eric, we get asked all the time, "Are you guys real brothers? Like, is it some sort of shtick?" And it's like, no, we're actually brothers. We both work in data and have for a while. So my background is in BI and data warehousing. I kind of came into the industry in the heyday of maybe the Informatica, Oracle Exadata, Cognos data stack at the enterprise level. And if you're watching and you have never heard of any of those tools, I understand. That means you're a little fresher to the industry than I am. But that was 16 years ago now, which is crazy to think about. But and then in that time, I've done a lot of stuff. So been on a data team. I have worked at a consulting firm. I've worked for mega vendors like Oracle, and in the last 5 years, I've been more in the startup world. I'm currently at a company called Good Data, which is really it's kind of like if you were to take a BI tool and like almost a DevOps data engineering tool and mash them together. So it's BI, but it takes a really analytics as code, CI/CD, composability approach to the BI landscape, and so that's kind of the story of me.
Yeah, and I think I'm trying to work out the first time we met. I'm not sure whether it was at Data Day Texas 3 years ago, was it, or was it?
Yeah, it had to be. It had to be Data Day Texas. That's the story of how I've met almost everybody in the data industry. Is like, well, I first met them at Data Day Texas, and now we're friends.
Yeah, and I can trace all my steps back to definitely everyone in America anyway in the data world, which was from my gate crashing Joe Reese's show years ago, and then him saying, "Yeah, you need to speak to this person. He's good. You need to speak to that." And the rest is history, as they say. So talking about history, let's talk about this BI to AI. And it's not just one letter difference, even though it may be quite simple to change on your CV. You just change a letter. You were a BI specialist, now you're an AI specialist. There's a little bit more to it than that. Let's probably talk about the beginning. And you mentioned I may be a little bit older than yourself. I may have got in slightly earlier, but I also started at Cognos. But I started at Cognos when it had Impromptu and PowerPlay. So for those of you who don't know, that they were both desktop tools. So you installed them on your PC. It used the local memory and storage of your PC or a storage drive there. And they were pretty cool. They weren't too bad. They had the concept of a catalog, and semantic layer, which everyone's just thinking is all a new cool thing, but no, they had that in the 90s, 35 years ago. And they had business objects back then as well, which was the other one which had its universe. So we had this world of best of breed, and you just mentioned, worked at Exadata, Informatica, and Cognos. So that back then it was the best of breed. Three vendors, three awesome bits of tech. Exadata, rocked. It was brilliant, but it required a lot of overhead to tune it. But Informatica got your cataloging done then. Your ETLs, you had all your transformation in one place. Life was simple, and you had either Cognos or business objects with a nice universe, nice catalog, all business described, and then you had lovely little dashboards and reports. So, But what happened since then? What's
Yeah, what did happen since then? You know, it's funny about that. You know what? I mean, honestly, so from a technical standpoint, what happened since then, I would say, and also culturally, is social media happened, and they were running. So the scale of social media was so huge that they could not rely on these SQL databases in order to manage the volume of data. And so what comes out of the Googles and Facebooks of the world is this thing called Hadoop.
Yep.
And Hadoop really completely changed the way that we approached analytical processing with MapReduce and all that sort of thing. And if you go back 10 years, so the value of that stack that you were first describing was in the I would say the data quality, the reproducibility, the trust. You would spend a lot of time back then building a data model before any end user ever interacted with the data. Someone like you or I would spend weeks or months, sometimes years in unfortunate cases, building out a star schema or series of star schemas in a data warehouse and then modeling it in the BI tool and all this other stuff, right? And the value of that was this reproducibility, but the downside to it was it lacked agility and it couldn't handle the data volumes that started to pop up around the social media companies. And so you get in the kind of the early mid 2010s, this massive move to everybody's got to have a data lake. And, you know, we're not going to model the data anymore. We're going to do schema on read. We're going to throw all the data into the lake. It's going to be in its raw format. And then maybe we'll slap some thin visualization layer on top of it. And that's all we're going to have, right? We're not going to need any of this semantics. We're not going to need to model business relationships. And honestly, that really did away with a lot of the old way we used to do things. But the funny thing is, here we are in 2025, and what's old is new again.
Yeah. And I also look to the past to innovate for the future is one of my catchphrases. But yeah, and I was just making some notes there of we had what I described at the beginning, the enterprise data stack or the expensive data stack.
Yeah.
And it took a long time to get stuff done, and it was very expensive, and it was reserved for the big boys, the big players out there. I think the problem that happened afterwards was the big data bubble, or the big data stack or the Hadoop data stack or overhyped data stack, I'm going to call it, is it promised the world. And the use case you came up with, Amelia, is like all of the logs and things like that you'd have to do with all that volume of data. Yeah, you had to have a solution for that. That was the solution for that. But it was a view of it can do all the stuff, Cloudera, Hortonworks. Yeah. We can take all your work. We can replace your data. We can save you loads of costs. And let's all be honest, it didn't really work. It didn't live up to the promises. BI was still sitting on top of the old. It never replaced. And this is probably something that you can say about the modern data stack. The modern data stack has replaced those enterprise data stacks and those Hadoop entirely. Hadoop never was able to manage to replace the need for having a standard style, an old school data warehouse. But yeah, so we had that. I'm going to give something to modern data stack. You were able to deliver, albeit you may needed 12, 15 tools to get there, and it probably cost you much more than you thought. But it was still probably cheaper than you had in the old days of the enterprise data stack, or how much money was lost on the old hyped Hadoop data stack. So
yeah, I mean, I think people today, you had to have been around to really appreciate the checks that companies were writing for these systems back in the day. And a common complaint about the modern data stack is there's too many tools, which is true. And then there's also this idea, well, I have these 15 tools, I have to pay 15 vendors, and it's too expensive.
Yep.
And too expensive is, of course, relative, because the cost of buying you got to remember, back in the day when you wanted a high performance data warehouse, you bought physical hardware.
Yep.
I can remember unboxing the new Exadata blade, and it was like that scene in Pulp Fiction where they're looking into the suitcase and there's golden light coming out of it and everything. It was exactly like that. And the data warehouse literally ran in the basement of our headquarters.
Yeah.
And those were ruinously expensive systems by today's standards.
And they weighed a lot. I mean, you're talking multi-million, you know. And if you wanted to have failover, you want to have, you know, you had to double it. I'll tell you, I was at one company where they put these exadators in the one of the highest floors of the data center. There's two stories. One was someone that had to take the exadata apart to get into the lift because it was too big to get in there to take off some pieces. In other words, it hit the weight limit of the floor. They couldn't add any more to it because you know these things. But yeah, you're talking, you know, tens of millions and they kept going out of date. You know, the X1, the X2. If you want to see how big they are, have a look at what's it? Iron Man. I think one of the Iron Mans. It's the whole back of his truck is full with these exadators and I mean, there's no way that truck's suspension will be able to take that because you know how much they weigh. Yeah, they were the old days. So we touched on this whole consolidation piece. So we had best of breed, then we had the best of the open source put together. There wasn't many choices then, so you didn't really have best of breed then. You were either Cloudera, Hortonworks, or Mapr. Or you went your own. You know, you managed your own open source, which I don't know how successful at large. I don't think any enterprise company would have ever done that.
No.
But then we went, as you said, to the modern data stack, and I mean, let's have a little like spitball of how many tools we think 5-10 years ago you would have had to have had. All right, so you're gonna have an ingest tool.
Yep.
You're gonna have a data catalog as well. You're going to have an orchestration tool. You may have a transformation tool. You'll probably have 1 or 2 observability tools. You'd have a data quality tool. You'd probably have some sort of DevOps deployment capability as well. You may have had back then, you may have had a semantic layer separate tool. You may have had a separate security tool as well for doing all of the permissions via a proxy or automating your entitlements. And you would have had probably 1 or 2 BI tools.
Yeah. Yes. Throw in, data science toolkits. Your Jupyter notebooks, and then the database itself, right? BigQuery.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So if anyone was counting out there, if they want to put it in the chat of how many products it took to make, or vendors it took to make a modern data stack. And if we want to fast forward now, and look, we do interchangeably. I don't know BigQuery as much. We can do Databricks and we can do Snowflake. I'll start with Snowflake. I know it all. Okay, I can do my ingest in there now. I can do my orchestration in there now. I can do my data quality in there now. I can probably write my own observability stuff in there now as well with my own stuff. Maybe in fact, I can either run some open source stuff in there now, or I can do my own transformation. So I wouldn't have needed to buy a transformation product. I can use Streamlit, or I can use Snowsight for my reporting purposes. I can run my AI and ML in there as well. I need one platform. There is going to be edge case, and it's not going to be the best of each of those ones, but they're only going to be improving it. And Databricks, I could probably list, even though I don't know as well. It has similar. Maybe the BI tool is the latest thing it's just purchased, but
I was at the Databricks conference last week, and that was a big part of all their announcements was their investment in BI.
Yeah.
So they're making Databricks is making a huge investment in BI, and they announced essentially a semantic layer. So this consolidation of the stack around these mega vendors, I think is if you're if you came to data through the modern data stack, I'm trying to put myself in the headspace of someone who's a little more junior than me, right? And that was what you knew, and that's what your skills are. And now you see this kind of consolidation around the mega vendors. It's probably pretty scary, I would imagine.
Yeah.
But trust those of us who've been through it before that this is also part of a very natural cycle, and that Snowflake and Databricks are going to try to do everything. They're going to do a lot of the things. Let's be honest, pretty well. Where you're not going to need, do you need Fivetran if Snowflake's tool is 80% is good? It's good enough.
Yeah.
In a lot of situations, but that of course will now open up the green field for new, more innovative companies to step in and do things that are not done by the by the major players, which is what you and I saw.
Yeah.
You think about the consolidation wave in data. Like Informatica was recently acquired by Salesforce. Well, they're one of the last holdouts from that era that wasn't gobbled up by one of that era's mega vendors, right? It was IBM and SAP and Oracle who went and bought the whole 90s, 2010s data stack. And now we may see this, not we may, I mean, I think we are seeing a similar thing. It's the new mega vendors who are going to be buying everything.
So I did a post. In fact, it's the first time I've managed to go and get an image while on a show and actually find it on time. So
congratulations! I'm glad I could be here for that, Chris.
There's a first time for everything. But and this was something I've been talking about it while I was walking around the Snowflake Summit, and I want to try and articulate. And I think there's another dimension to this as well, and I'll share that on this one as well. Is that if you started looking at the cloud vendors that are out there, so you've got your AWS, your Azure, and you've got your big Google. So Azure is the only one that's pretty much gone full stack, whole lot. You know, it'll sell you the dream. We can do your whole data platform end to end as well as everything else. You know, and you know if you're a CEO playing golf with a very senior person from Microsoft, you know. You think that's the best decision I'm going to make here. I'm going to celebrate in the 19th hole with a couple of bottles of champagne. But then everyone else has to deal with actually implementing what is not a single product and not actually that well stitched together. I mean, they do a great job of packaging up these things, but I don't think that the testing and the upgrade path or going forwards is always thought about. I think I made this joke is, you know, if you lift it up under the bonnet of the Microsoft stack, you know, there's been more changes in there than a catwalk model in Milan Fashion Week. You know, it is always changed, but they've been able to create that. I mean, AWS, it probably could do all those things, but it's more of a assemble it yourself, and you know they haven't really gone after the DB. Sorry, they haven't gone after the Databricks or Snowflake to really challenge their sort of offering. But then you have all of the so they're the vendors, the cloud vendors trying to eat up the market. You've got the platform features that are the layers. So you know all the products we listed earlier. So each one of them is probably about 10 of the vendors in each of those ones that pick up those features. Then the platform vendors are just gradually like, I'll consolidate that, and as you say, Salesforce. You know, I don't know what their end game is, but they've got Tableau, they've got all the CRM system now, they've got all the integration. You know, all the Informatica suite now. I think I rumor they're building a data layer of some sort. So does that mean they're going to provide a complete stack? So is that their vision, or they're trying to acquire the customers? I don't know.
I don't either. That's the puzzling one to me. Is Salesforce's approach?
Yeah.
I've heard some different takes on it that
try
to make. Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely on your end.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
You'd be more likely to hear
car.
Like
That's all I can say.
Yeah. No, the Salesforce one is interesting, and the acquisition of Informatica was, you know, it wasn't super shocking because we had heard, if you remember, a year ago or something. I think they came close to an acquisition, and then it cooled off, and then probably Informatica's value went down a little bit, and Salesforce said, "Okay, let's pull the trigger." I mean, that I was talking with Matt Housley about this, and it just seems okay. Surely Salesforce's strategy can't be to put together a data stack, right? Because they're missing actually the heart of a data stack, which is the database.
Well, I think they've got one. They've got something.
Do they?
Yeah.
Oh, see, that's news to me.
I don't think I was told under NDA or anything like that.
Okay.
So pretty sure.
Okay.
Let me just check my legal. No, it was okay. I was a rumor on the mean data streets. But yeah, no, I heard that they had something in the making.
Okay. Well, then that to me was the sign. If they acquire a database, then that's the sign that they're going to try to compete in this space.
It's not easy building a database. as
No.
as we've seen. I mean, an
No.
optimizer takes a long time. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
hardest thing on a database is to build your optimizer.
Yeah.
And Snowflake nailed it because they built it from the scratch up, and it's just their magic with all of the histogram information of capturing all the data as it comes in. Unless you're doing that, you're just throwing compute at it. I mean, I know Databricks, it's Spark underneath it, so it's not as if they built that from scratch. They solved the problem, but is it as efficient? And I see there's lots of posts going around of a performance bashing. I'm not going to get into that one, but yeah, it's really hard. So I'd be very surprised if Salesforce pulls it off and then integrates all those products. Even Oracle, that's been on that, going back to the old days of the complete stack happening again. So we talked about being an Oracle Informatica, big Cognos. That towards the end of the year of the enterprise data stack, it was Oracle were buying up all of the pieces of the puzzle. So it bought Synopsys, which was ODI. It bought SQL Analytics, that became OBIE. I can't remember, maybe some other people. But yeah, so it bought an ETL tool. It had the database, had the BI reporting tool.
Yep.
Was it?
Bought Hyperion, which was
of course,
the OLAP engine
as well. Oh yeah. And Essbase, was it Essbase as well? Was it?
Yeah.
They
bought both.
So and to date, I've actually talked to someone. They're not integrated. They never got integrated. It was never one product. There were different licenses on the thing, but you could have that one vendor. And when you're selling at the top level, the assumption is single vendor, single product that has these features, and
that's definitely what gets sold, isn't it? Yeah. Salesforce. I mean, look, let's talk about this Salesforce acquisition for a second. Look, my biggest question is that I understand that both Informatica and Tableau have made big investments in their cloud platforms and cloud feature set. But my understanding is that for both tools, the majority of the revenue by a substantial margin is still on premise. So how, Salesforce is obviously a cloud first company, and how do they migrate that transition? Because I can tell you tools that have an on-premise legacy and then have a cloud version, getting from that on-premise tool to that cloud version has always just been an enormous lift for the customers that I've worked with.
That's a good point. So if it's using as an accelerator to actually take workload that's on premise to Salesforce, then maybe that's right, because they can suppose they can bundle in all of the ETL logic and the rest of it from one to another. But there's not. I mean, if you think of the things that all still run on premise, they're not the packages anymore. It's all like homegrown sort of applications built. It's not as if I'm trying to think of a CRM system that is still a big CRM system that is not cloud. I'm trying to think of a big ERP system that, even SAP. SAP maybe after SAP. That's another interesting area as well. Is the whole we haven't talked about SAP, and that's talking about all the acquisitions that went on as well. So SAP bought BusinessObjects, SAP bought Sybase. They created a strategic deal with Databricks, and they've got one with Snowflake, I believe, coming up. So where do we see them going in the play? Because they had that SAP HANA, which was pretty expensive, and yes, not as a best of breed on that bit. So
they're one that I have a harder time figuring out, and maybe that's just because I just have less experience with them personally in my career, and we tend to run into them less here in the United States versus in Europe for obvious reasons.
It was a German company, but most manufacturing companies will have SAP.
So one thing, actually, I'd like to get your take on. I don't know if you saw. I missed the news until I ran into Juan Cicada at the Databricks conference. That Data.World
acquired by ServiceNow.
By ServiceNow, correct. And so I'm kind of curious. Do these CRM platforms and these other huge technology players, are they going to try to get a piece of this too, right? Like is ServiceNow looking to build their own data stack so that people can solve data problems within ServiceNow, and they don't have to pipe data out of ServiceNow into Snowflake. They can just take care of everything related to ServiceNow directly within ServiceNow.
So it's a really good point, and I haven't spoken to one. So if I did guess this right, it's not sort of not insider knowledge, but what you were just saying there was probably the reason and rationale behind them buying it. So if you're able to have that, we'll call context layer, we'll call it, but the semantics, the ontology, the graph, knowledge graph of an organization, if you can add that to your CRM system where you want to go, which is you want to have your central place where everyone comes to go and ask all the questions, you can then own any of the associated markup on any of the AI compute that's generated, rather than someone else. And this is, I think, the other race as well. So you see Salesforce sharing data to Snowflake as a data share. You can now, once that data is shared over there, you can build your sales process on that data that's in that location with some apps or something on top of it, which means you don't have to have Salesforce as your entry into it, because otherwise you've got to put all of your data into Salesforce to go make a decision. So it's chasing. Yeah, and you've seen recently there's some changes of contracts where they're not allowing API calls. So I think it was Slack, maybe. Or no, Salesforce. Salesforce are preventing external AI calls to your data in there. So to Slack, basically to query your Slack, because you have to go and use their one. So where these companies have got their data now, and they probably want to keep it or make it harder for it to go across. Because it's that platform gravity. People want to have the compute. They want to get the money from the compute running there. If they lose the data, because the compute follows the data now, they lose that revenue as well. So I think I think it's getting that context. It's bought it for the context layer, which I suppose in Salesforce would have got with Informatica with any catalog it had as well.
Exactly.
So you had Data Galaxy. I may be incorrect. I thought it was an acquisition. I think it was a merger, but I thought Data Galaxy was a bit bigger than them. But Joule, I think it was, which is a data value sort of a product. So you do see all of this consolidation. And I mean, Tom made a comment here. Yeah, 100%. I think I was doing some research when I first started banging on about it. And it's 3 years ago I said that it was needed. And it's probably needed, well, maybe people will recognize it needed before then, but it has been long overdue. I think the only people that probably don't like that are all the vendors that the past 3-4 years have been spending all their investment they've got sponsoring these very large conferences. Because you wouldn't have got the ROI on it.
Right.
So they're the biggest losers in this situation.
I mean, I think there's a huge element of that. Like the need for the consolidation was recognized by you and others years ago.
Yeah.
But these tools, of course, are almost all venture backed.
Yeah.
And they have a certain valuation, and they either need to get to that valuation or the VCs need to give up on that valuation.
Yeah.
Right. Those are the two things that have to happen. And so I think that's like the gap between, okay, this needs to happen versus now it is happening.
So this is why you're seeing more mergers than actual sales, because mergers, you can do quite a share swap or something like that. Yeah. I'll swap these shares that aren't really worth this value for these shares that aren't really worth that value. But then both of us can still think they are worth that value because no one else knows. Right. And we haven't actually lost the money. I can still keep my job so I can go and do some other investments that probably won't work either, but I won't get found out for a little longer as well.
Exactly. Right. You can just push it into the future, right? The reckoning will eventually come, especially if you raised money, you're a data tool and you raised money in 2021. It was awesome in 2021, but now it's kind of a curse. Yeah.
No, I think, and this I suppose which way round it you go, really. So now it would be a good time to do a startup because you can actually have a very small development team. You can automate a load of stuff through AI. You don't need to go and get some funding as and you won't have as much funding. The problem is now, what you build now is going to be gobbled up by someone else, or everyone else has the same ability to be able that quick as well.
Yeah.
But there's lots of companies that have burden of large debt that they've had to do it because they had to do it the old way, because they had to go and hire 200 people to build this stuff because you couldn't get it doing that fast. They had to go and spend loads of money on all these conferences because the word of mouth, or you had to be part of that ecosystem to be a success. I mean, Cursor, how many employees has it got now? 50.
It's like very few. Yeah,
and they've hit 500 million ARR. I think it's the fastest company ever to hit that 500. And yeah, if you look at all the other ones that took, like, I mean, Uber, I think it took 6 years or something like that to make that. How many staff did it had to generate that? Anthropic, I think, is the other one that's coming in that one. But everyone else, that you'd never be able to get 500 million ARR with that few staff, let alone that quick.
Yeah, it would have been impossible. And I mean, look, this, if you're hearing this conversation, I would say the next wave of major independent data tools are being founded right now.
Yep.
Right. That's how this life cycle goes, and we don't know who it's going to be yet. Right. But they're being founded right now.
If we did, we wouldn't tell you. All right. Because we didn't.
Exactly. And so I think part of what I would do is, look, if you think you have this idea, your ability to achieve a product sophistication with a reasonable investment and a reasonable headcount is there now. And it was not there for this generation of tools that we're talking about that are all now acquisition targets. Like to your point, I don't know how many engineers they had to have. I don't mean to pick on Fivetran. It's just in my head, right? I don't know how many engineers they needed to have at Fivetran, but it's a hell of a lot more than you would need to have now to build the same tool because of this AI assisted development. I
mean, Ethan Aaron, I shout out to him on what he's achieved he's got a team of 4 or 5 people, I think. And I'm not going to quote what is, but he's doing pretty good for that number of people. And he can compete with Fivetran in some areas. So it is possible to do things lightweight, and he's been doing this a little while, but his approach of doing it metadata driven, is even easier now with using likes of Cursor and things like that.
Yeah.
But one tip: have a good architect. All right, don't just say that you're going to bring in like a load of people that they give them Cursor and go, okay, we're going to have a working platform. No, you'll go back to a monolith that no one can actually understand. So I think that's become cool now. So it's cool to be a librarian now, which never thought. And architects have come back in fashion as well, because you still need to design how you may get people to go, or your agentic teams to go and build some of this stuff, but you need to work out how it's all being strung together. And a good old conceptual model, logical model, and architecture functional components is back being cool again now.
Well, AI really lowers the barrier to doing dumb stuff.
Yeah. Right.
Great stuff and dumb stuff. It is both. Like it just makes everything easier, and it's much easier. I think I recognize this in my own personal use of AI, like the sycophancy problem.
Yeah,
where it tends to tell you you're always right.
Yeah.
So having this architect, someone who is overseeing the whole thing and saying like, hey, there's an architecture we're going for. There are pieces we need. They need to work in such and such a fashion. Who can keep all that in mind will allow you to take advantage of tools like Cursor and allow your one engineer to go wild and build all this wild stuff.
Yeah.
But still keep it within the realm of, okay, this is actually what we need. It addresses the problem. It does it efficiently. It doesn't have security holes. It doesn't have, all that sort of stuff. So if anything, the return of the architect role is really interesting to me, because in my early career, that was what you aspired to.
Yep.
I can remember being, like a level 1, junior BI developer on a team, and we were in IT. I was in a big IT organization at the time, and we had these 2 architects, and they were the cool guys. They attended all the meetings. They made all the decisions about architectures and who was going to build what and how we were going to do it, and that was what you aspired to. I was like, oh man, if I work hard someday, I can be these guys. And then it felt like that role just evaporated.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. It became very much engineering led. I think when Scrum went full Scrum, architects, even if they're in a company, they were just like, and to be fair, architects got a bad name as well. It's like it's sitting in their ivory towers, probably a lot younger, a lot older than the developers. They haven't got a clue anymore, and probably they didn't because they weren't accountable for any delivery. And I'll put my hand up. I've been up most of my career. I call myself an architect. I was not, but I was an architect that was able to do some of the code and delivery, but also speak to the business and do all that requirement stuff, and also do an element of road mapping and strategic thinking. So, maybe not all architects were sat in that area, and you had to do that to keep being a good architect, because if you move too far up, you're too far away from reality, and you weren't able to. You lost respect for people because you don't know what they're talking about.
Yes.
So yeah, I think there is a what do I call it? It's logic over languages. I think I refer to it as is that logical thinking is what's needed. Whether you call that an architect, it's logical thing. I even built a Python API to go and transfer our data for our CRM system and manage our resource management. So, look, I'd never written a code of Python in my life, but I did some Visual Basic back in the day, and it didn't take me too long with a bit of help from ChatGPT and to do it. So I'm not going to show my code to anyone because I'm sure it will be ripped apart a little bit, but it's functional. We'll get it optimized at some point.
I'm curious though. Like I think that the skills you describe, I would say everybody's going to have to learn.
Yep.
Because as AI does more and more of the hard technical work, right? Your ability to be that kind of architect and to think about your interaction with these AI systems in that way. You're the orchestrator of the AI systems, and you need to understand which systems are good for what and when you want to use them and how they all fit together. And that can be your superpower right now. Yeah.
And something that AI doesn't do, is it? Have you ever seen an error response saying, that's stupid, why did you even think of doing it like that?
That's the problem, man.
And it's going, well, come on, you need to go back to basics because you've missed these fundamentals. Then it's never going to say that. It's going, oh, very good, well-structured comments on this. But here you go, here's a revision. Oh, cut, paste, done. Right, move on to the next problem. You've learned nothing. You have learned absolutely nothing. So having that architectural oversight role, and this is the other problem, is if we don't do this, the level of knowledge that the next generation of developers that still decide to enter this market, that haven't been put off by all the fear factor of it, they're going to be useless, and they're not going to be able to provide, which I think is always going to be a valid use case and skill, having logical architecture thinking that's aligned to the business and asking the right questions, and also critiquing where critique is needed. Feedback, brutal as it may be, is needed because people don't learn otherwise. And if you don't highlight the lack of knowledge in these areas, and maybe there's a product out there it's like a training thing for people that ask stupid questions to Cursor. Here you go, Cursor will make a new feature by tomorrow probably, but you put it in like a haven't got a clue mode or something like that. You go, oh, okay.
It really does tell you you're always right.
Yeah,
like whatever you propose, it's and it does it in one of the things I've done in ChatGPT is I've added a system prompt that says, don't just always tell me I'm right. Tell me what I need to know, not what I want to know.
Yeah.
And that has helped a little, but it still just tells me I'm always right. It just does it in meaner language now.
Yeah.
It's so deeply ingrained in some of these models.
I think some people that are always right, it's okay. You know who you are out there. You're
for them, it makes perfect sense.
But for us, that we're not always right.
No, I can't have that.
No, exactly. Yes, yeah. I mean, there's actually a couple of questions. Let me put them in anyway.
Sure.
I want to there's a new topic we want to get to, which is probably going to be a nice meaty one. So it's back to the Informatica. Do you think the merger of Informatica with Salesforce indicates more merger? Yeah, there's definitely more coming. I think there'll be two levels. There'll be the smaller level, more smaller merges between the big little guys trying to group together and survive. And then there'll be the big player. I think SAP's the one that stands out as someone that hasn't gone and acquired them for a little while. You always see when someone before an acquisition happens, there's always some sort of partnership that happens with them, or they start doing stuff. We've seen that many times, and we've seen that SAP have got a relationship with both Snowflake and they've obviously realised they're losing business on their SAP HANA stuff because no one's putting it on there, so they need to work with either of those. And I think that's the one that stands. I mean, IBM hasn't acquired Link for a little while as well, but I don't know if they get into the game. And Oracle and IBM have been sitting it out for quite a while. Well, apart from IBM bought a Coda recently.
Yeah, that was surprising.
I don't care. I like that actually.
Do you?
Because it's the independence. There's less independence now.
Right. It's clearing the decks for you to be like,
exactly.
hey, I actually have a objective perspective. Yeah. That makes perfect sense. I think, Hafiz, I think, of course there can be more acquisitions. I'm really curious to see if these very large point vendors like, I don't know, Workday and HubSpot, are they going to start buying data tools in an attempt to keep as much of the data inside as possible? If that happens, I think it'd be like chum in the water.
Have you used Zoho at all? I mean, HubSpot we used to use. I'm sure it's come a long way, but have you used Zoho at all?
I haven't. No.
So we use it internally. It's pretty good. I mean, it requires it requires a lot of customization, but you can pretty much do anything you want in there. I mean, we got analytics coming off it, got forecasting coming off it. You can put data back into it. You can run SQL on top of it. You can have all your dash for a small company that you've already got. We're not the size of Salesforce, and we haven't got the budget to go. And no need to really. But yeah, it's pretty good, and HubSpot's come a long way as well. So. Yeah, I think those ones. There's the ones coming up the market. So that was the other layer of dimension to those cubes. It was the industry and size of organization that affects where they're going to go from a consolidation. So, for example, what's the Pete? What's the one that all the security and the internal agencies use. Privet. I forgot it. Anyway, it'll come back to me. That's annoying. But and then you've got a lot of the lot of the Azure stack. All the retail companies go on that because they don't like the AWS stack. So there'll be certain industries that will have like clusters of anything that has a sales sort of focus is going to be more on the Salesforce or the one of the Workday sort of thing. So so I think they'll be looking at different industries to get into. SAP will be getting more into that manufacturing one. So so there'll be different ones trying to go for different industries. And I'll bother now. I can't remember what the name of that platform was, but it'll come back to me later. So I think there's one more from. We got another question. People avoid using the storage of data. Take it, then come security. Yeah.
Go back to data.
Bring on the data modeling. Yes, I agree.
This is our friend Joe here. His crusade right now with the data modeling. It's been interesting to see it come back. I'm curious, like among your clients, have you seen a return? Do the client a return of interest in the clients, or even if they don't know or care about it, are you using more classical data modeling techniques?
Yes, 100%. That's our default. We have a number of patterns. We use things like schema change or flyway to which you do all of the versioning of the schema changes on there. yeah, by default, we're always, and it's becoming, I think, more and more important. So with a good naming standards on your data modeling, with some good tagging on it, you can automate generation of your semantic layer, context layer, you want to call it, but you can actually automate a lot of that if you actually do the data modeling correctly, and also put like foreign key, primary key constraints. You can take that metadata as well. So yeah, I'm seeing, especially with AI and ML being part of it, people are wanting to either feature model or dimensional modeling. Haven't Data Vault, we've seen it on very large transformations, and there's an associated overhead for going that route. These are the tooling out there, though, and I will. When SQL DBM has been a good one, it's just quite expensive. It's not entry level pricing. And entry level one, I think it's DB Schema. Again, no kickbacks from these shout outs, by the way, but yeah, DB Schema, and there's another one, but they're a bit old and clunky. So there is a gap, I think, in the market for a damn good data modeling and semantic modeling tool that's focused on just doing that. But I'm sure someone's going to say there's one out there, and there'll be some comments of, have you tried my product at some point? But,
of course.
Yeah. So for the last part, we've got a quarter of an hour. We've been going. So semantic layers. We've talked about semantic layers at the beginning with Cognos, the universe. Cognos and its catalogs, and BusinessObjects and its universe. And I'll go back to the last part of the Cognos. Like, you had framework manager was the ability to do this, and even in impromptu you had these things. So you actually put weighting on the joins to prevent circular references. You put descriptions. You put descriptions on the on the attributes. You gave roll-up measures of how they be used. You could then have all your entities defined. You could reuse them by doing references to them. Automatically generated cat. Pretty good, but I mean, it did required someone to do it, and that was the bottleneck. And it was a GUI driven thing and never scripted. So that I think that's probably the thing that why it never scaled as such. And same thing, business universe providers, all the same stuff. So you fast forward, going over Power BI stuff. It was never done properly. It was always, I'm just going to create that report. It's a table on top of it, surface it here. And it was something that was never really done. It was never like coordinated across. ThoughtSpot came around, and it had some element of that. And I'll say it as it is. How they did the security there, you probably should put the security somewhere else. It still was a bit clunky. It required someone to manage it and look after it as well. So. And then you'd have to do this in multiple places. You got your Tableau ones doing it. You got your Power BI. So we've always had this semantic layer, but it's just been spread out and never coordinated. And if we're gonna learn from the past to see how we do this in the future. And the problem is calling something what was there for semantic layer. Everyone keeps referring it as we had one there before. So I came up with I put a comment with it was Shane Gibson on a post, and it was one Cicadas post, which he did a great job of breaking down what semantic layer was, what knowledge graph was, what ontology was, and everyone's arguing about it's provide context, guys. Let's just call it a context layer, and we have an internal blueprint I always use to try and have a functional view of everything we do for our customers. And if you put down knowledge graphs, you're not talking the language that the stakeholder you're talking to can understand. If you say, right, it's a context layer. Oh, it provides context. Yeah. Oh, I go collect through it from my the multi-context protocol platform. This new blah. Oh, I put my MCP for that. Yeah. I can put my BI tool for that. Yeah. I can do my other. Yeah, it goes for easy. I understand that now. under the bonnet, it might be a semantic model. It might also be some ontologies. It might be stuff from your business catalog. It might be a knowledge graph that's in there as well. It might be even a vector database that's doing nearest points, all this stuff. They don't need to know. Right? They don't need to know it's all of these things. But you have a logical layer that is managed in the same way we've got for data ops. So you're managing that schema change and all the change. Use AI and ML to flip and manage it for you, but let's agree. Well, I'm not that precious on what we're going to say. I'm going to call it a context there. But if we focus on what something's doing and not use it for a whole marketing exercise to go and sell your product, medallion architecture, or or was the latest one? What's the database? What's they call it? Databricks call their database Firebase or Lakebase. Yeah, Lakebase. So okay, Lakebase. You mean an OLTP database?
Right. Yeah.
But okay. All right. So we don't need to go down that route and invent these things that are just everyone's going to associate to a particular vendor. It's a functional capability. Well, I've had a little mini rant on this anyway. So
yeah,
what's your view on semantics 2.0 versus like a context layer?
No, I mean, so first of all, we have a big marketing problem in this industry, and calling something a semantic layer, for example, just makes it it obfuscates what it is for.
Yeah.
And I think and what it is for, in my mind, is to give that context to the data, to make the data discoverable and understandable.
Yeah.
And you don't care as much about what actual system is it sitting in.
Yeah.
Where's the compute happening? This is really important it's been important for a long time. And I think we recognize the importance of it back in that Cognos framework manager days. I was a framework manager guru at one point. But now we recognize it again. And it's in many ways, it's because AI systems, there's a lot of information they need to know. And look, they're very impressive toys. Yep. When you use them on data, small data sets and easy to understand data sets that don't have any intricacies and use standard language. Well, how many businesses am I actually describing right now, especially large ones? None. Right?
Even my one.
Yeah, right. I mean, you guys have your own messy data. You have your own terms you use for things. You have rules for, okay, yeah, we have this metric, but actually you shouldn't use it unless you're in this situation, and then it makes sense to use it. And an AI needs all that in order to answer the most basic questions from business users in an accurate way. Otherwise, what it does is it makes assumptions based on its training set, and it creates the wrong calculations, or it uses metric X when it should use metric Y, or it assumes that because something's called revenue, it means revenue. But internally that this field that says revenue is not really revenue, it's our sales total, right?
Yeah.
But someone named it revenue 18 years ago when we created the database, and changing it now would be ruinous to our data architecture. And so we just leave it called revenue. AI doesn't know any of that stuff. And so how are you going to tell it?
Context is king, and context changes over time as well. So
right.
And the other challenge I've got with this is if there's only one answer to every question, then we're all screwed, because we know that's not the case, all right? So, and that's where bias comes into it, because now you've got a situation where whoever's controlling what that one answer is, or influencing what that one answer is generating the bias to actually make that. And then I suppose it can be quite a good thing in some scenarios if you want to get a general consensus in a smaller group. But if this is going on a mass scale, it's propaganda on steroids.
I had last week's episode of Super Data Brothers, I had Ramona Truta on.
Yeah, cool.
And
she's doing the rounds of all the podcasts at the moment.
Yeah, she is. She's fascinating. It was one of my favorite interviews I've done. But we talked a lot about this, about the evolution of technology over time, and how, I think if you look at the algorithms and the social media applications, the way they were tuned, they kind of turned into these disinformation amplification machines.
Yeah.
And I think AI will be that on steroids, because AI can really tailor its answer. It can learn even better how you like to consume information, what words get a response from you, and it can really tailor to tell you, I mean, in like a precision guided way, to lead you to conclusion X or conclusion Y. And okay, there's a societal problem that we can get into, but also within like
We
just
haven't
your
got time for that.
systems.
And we
Right.
can't solve that one.
No, but just like your systems in your business are going to be susceptible to this too, right?
Yep.
Like, who is driving the AI's understanding of your business? And
I'm creating my bias.
there you go. It's the Chris Tab machine running inside of Lead Data.
Just something that you triggered a bit of a thought there, and something, an observation I've made over the years of the different news channels. So, and here I've seen it in one place, but I mean, even in Europe. So I'll start in Europe. So I'm not. It's a safer place to start. So you do a lot of traveling in fact, you into Czech Republic or Prague, and then to Latvia as well when I was working at a client. And you got to see lots of news channels. So there was and they were luckily they were in English. I could understand it. So you had the BBC, you had RLT, the French one, you had the Italian one, you had Al Jazeera as well, and you had the Russian news as well. And there was a time where something had happened, and the Russians were saying this, the British were saying that. And you heard about it, but it's probably about the middle. That's probably where the real truth is around there. But if you just watch one, you would thought one page, you watch the other. And I think it's the same thing with the model. So if now we all, and this is the model wars, I suppose, if now we all standardize on, I'm a Claude guy, or I'm a Hugging Face this one, or that's my ChatGPT this one. They will not ask the same. They will not provide you the same answer for this sort of question. They will do different tasks at different levels and have different biases as well. So I think what we need to get to is a situation is where you have your own moral context that you provide to it. So then you orchestrate all the other ones that are asking to it, and they'll like give you answers, and they'll say, look, based on what I know about you and where you are now, all these different news things, I think this is the relevant information that would be for you. And then, but you've got control of that layer of what your characteristic, or you can even reset it, or you could you get the point. Because the world's getting a fun place really in this data world. We are definitely moving into the next era. So the fourth one. Maybe this will be my last one. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, look, I hope you guys have a huge exit, and it is your last era, and then you can invite me to hang out on your yacht sometime.
Oh yeah, and
that's what I'm looking forward to.
It'll be a dinghy or something like that, or maybe come visit me in my very small, modest ski apartment. That'll be.
Yeah, that's I think you're right, and look, importantly, everything we're talking about is kind of on a personal, consumer, societal level, but it's going to happen internally too. If you guys are fine-tuning models, or let's say if you're providing business context to AI, the bias in your business context is going to get fed into the AI. If you're in an organization that is really sales driven, I would say that AI is probably going to amplify that, because what it's going to learn from all the information you feed it is like, this is a sales driven organization. So when someone asks it a question, it's going to suggest that you do these sales driven things. And
it's going to see by all the HR exits.
Yeah.
and who exited on the same day as the logs when their logons were turned off, and what they had their target for and how much they missed it. It could give you alerts as a salesperson. By the way, you are 2 days away from being fired based on historical data. You really need to close this deal. I'm not suggesting we do apply that sort of pressure to people out there, but you're right. Context is key, and you know, it's the more you can go and get these generic, you know, well trained on all of on very large data sets. But you still need to go and I argue with it at the time. And he's like, no, this is what I want. No, I want the thing you gave me before. What was that was better? Where's it gone? And you drop this information, and then you know, do an image. You have to argue. No, I said do this. Like, come on, what are you doing? You know, it's like it shouldn't be this complicated. Then yeah, you can't really shout at an AI and that. Well, at least they're not going to complain to HR about you. That's the main thing.
That's true. You can let fly with them.
Well, we've gone to the hour, and yeah, we could have carried on. I'm sure much longer run. So if people want to reach out, connect with you, find out where to catch up with you next. What's the tour like for you at the moment, Ryan?
Yeah, well, so LinkedIn. I'm like everyone else in our social circle, addicted to LinkedIn. So follow me there. You can check out the Super Data Brothers show if you like this
highly
type of
recommend
conversation. Chris has been on it. You should come on in season 4 in the fall. Let's get something on the calendar. But that's every Thursday at noon. And then, if you want to meet in person, I'll be at Big Data London coming up.
Hey,
yeah,
so you can come on the panel. I'm doing a panel there anyway. So
I would love to. Yeah,
we'll have we're calling it the AI and data surgery. So we have our data doctors on hand with their white lab coats to take down your data ailments and AI ailments. And
you are great with the provocative titles. I gotta say, you have a knack, man.
I think ChatGPTs, and that was a fresh one. Yeah, it's probably good. It's been tuned on me now, so it's I still got some. I got a use still in the world, still just about.
Yeah. And I have to also say, gooddata.com, right? Check me out there if you're in the market for if you're looking at a BI tool that's a little more modern than the Tableaus and Power BIs of the world. Check us out. Yeah,
check out the guys. I worked with you guys years ago, back when I was doing that. They're based out of Prague, weren't they? So one of our clients had it over there as well. So, and I know it's come a long way since those days as well.
Oh yeah, yeah.
All right, well, yeah. I got to get a flight. I'm back in the UK. If anyone's listening, as from tomorrow. And our meetups next week. I don't know who's on the show next week. I've got someone. I'll find out. I find out soonish anyway. But we've got quite a few people on it. But Ryan, thank you very much. Really enjoyed the chat. We could have nerded out much longer. Looking forward to catching up Big Data London. So anyone wants to catch up with me and Ryan at the same time, you'll see us both at Big Data London. All right.
Always a pleasure, Chris. Thank you.
And you. We'll call that a wrap.